All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. It's Wednesday, November 27th. I'm John Weigell here with Juliet, Bennett, Ryla, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. The Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef has been a headline generator all year long, but now it's reached a new peak. Their feud will officially enter the legal system as Drake's team filed a legal petition that accuses UMG and Spotify of inflating the streaming numbers of Lamar's diss track, Not Like Us. So what does a lawsuit like this mean for the music industry? What's the evidence about this, and how did this all start from the beginning? We'll chat about that in a bit, but first let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. To start us off, some retailers are having a lot of trouble, but some just might never die. Abercrombie Fitch is one of those, as it posted its sixth straight quarter of sales growth. Its revenue in Q3 reached $1.21 billion versus $1.19 billion in the same quarter last year. This, of course, all amid the arrest of former CEO Mike Jeffries on charges of sex trafficking. So interesting to see how this will play out in the next year. From there, the U.S. Department of Commerce has given $7.865 billion to chip company Intel as part of the signed U.S. Chips and Science Act. This was signed by Joe Biden back in 2022 to increase semiconductor manufacturing here in the States. Looks like it's finally underway and that Intel might get burrowed out of that giant hole that they've been in for a little while. From the U.S., we go overseas to Japan. Fujikura Ltd. is a Japanese cable company that you might not have heard of, but their stock is absolutely killing it right now. The AI boom has made this old-school cable company the best-performing stock in Japan. Fujikura makes wire cabling for data centers, and its shares rose 400% this year alone. That's insane. Next, wealth might not be all it's cracked up to be, though. Around 59% of Americans say that the ability to spend money on things that make them happy is the most important mark of success, according to a report by financial services firm Empower. Only 27% say wealth is the best measure of success. Aw. And finally, marathons now have competition for being the most strenuous race out there. A new race that's been gaining a lot of popularity is called the Ultra Marathon, or Backyard Ultra. Can you guess how long the race is? Is it an Ironman? Is it a marathon style? We can reveal that in the bottom of the ninth of the pod. It's on to our main story today, and Juliet, big one today. This has been popping up all week about Drake filing a lawsuit against UMG and Spotify over a lot of different claims that the song Not Like Us, Kendrick Lamar's diss track, was inflated with streams. Mm-hmm. First off, what do you think about this situation?
I think this situation is so odd, and I guess we should explain this is legal action, but it's not necessarily a lawsuit yet. It's a legal petition,
You're right,
which essentially is like before a lawsuit. So you're looking to find information before you are able to actually move forward with a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. And that after Drake filed the first one pertaining to UMG and Spotify. And UMG, by the way, distributes both Kendrick Lamar and Drake's music. Right. He did a second one. And this one pertains to similar action with iHeartRadio, but also takes issue with UMG not preventing the track from being released in the first place, because if you've listened to the track Not Like Us, it accuses Drake of being a sexual predator, specifically targeting minors. And I think at one point does call him a pedophile or insinuate that he is a pedophile. So Drake's like, why would you even let that song come out? Which I guess fair. That would be very offensive to anyone.
Sure.
So there's two potential petitions here, and it's unclear what's going to happen with either one of them. What's interesting, I think, is that when you think about rap beefs, which are, Drake and Lamar have been beefing since the early 2010s. I think they started their beef in like 2011. So it's been a long running thing. But rap beefs are very common. And in many ways, it almost feels like taking your beef to court is like the equivalent of going home and telling your mom.
That is completely correct. I see it very similarly with clearly something was too hot, so Drake got out of the kitchen a little bit on this. I guess I can understand maybe some defamation arguments for the pedophilia accusations in Kendrick Lamar's song, but this isn't exactly a defamation suit. It's more of a I'm going to attack the people that published this song and made it popular, aka his own record label, Universal Music Group, who are probably the ones that are profiting the most off of their beef, which is the most fascinating part, and Spotify, which is absolutely killing it with streams, I'm sure, from both their songs. Not Like Us, of course, is the most streamed song by distance out of all of their tracks from the discs.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, does he have that much to lose by going after UMG? Hard to say. He has his own label. He's got his own shit going on. UMG only distributes the music. Maybe he could find another way to do that. Taylor Swift is certainly someone who has proven that if you're big enough, you're popular enough, you don't need anybody else. You can do it all on your own. She does that with books. She does that with movies. She does that with pretty much everything. There's a Taylor's version for everything she does. I don't think that Drake is as popular as Taylor Swift. And I think that in the court of public opinion, it's just obvious that people think Kendrick Lamar has won this rap battle.
Yes. I can agree with that. I mean, it's pretty unanimous. I mean, Drake even released some songs after Not Like Us that he eventually took down. And he's kind of just been silent over this ever since. Probably just been taking the time to cook up this lawsuit, I feel like. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Most people think there's a clear winner. Drake, I think, wants to subvert that and go the other way and say how this song was pushed so hard by these companies to make people think that Kendrick won the beef. So this is getting a bit out of hand. I think this is the first musician beef ever that has actually gone to court, because Drake has been in it with Kanye West. He's been in it with Meek Mill. And, you know, all of those kind of petered out and solved themselves. And this one just doesn't seem to be doing that too much.
Right. And I think it's the very nature of the rap battle. It's a lot of hyperbolic things that you say about the other person. But I wanted to see, because I thought, you know what, accusing someone of being a pedophile, that's a lot, you know?
Could be bad, yeah.
It's not the same as saying, like, your mama's so fat. Like, you know, it's...
Why did my mind also go to your mama?
I was trying to think about the most playground of all disses when little kids have mock rap battles. And it's always your mom is so fat, which, like, who cares? Don't body shame anyone's mom. No one cares anymore. But the pedophilia thing, that's a pretty heinous allegation. So I was reading about whether or not Drake could potentially win a defamation lawsuit. I guess it wouldn't necessarily be UMG. We'd probably have to file one against Kendrick Lamar and then maybe also name UMG because they enabled the distribution of the song. And this piece in Billboard where they were talking to an expert, Dory Hainsworth, who's a veteran litigator, it says, she said it would actually be something maybe he wouldn't want to do, because when you sue for defamation, you basically have to prove that what the other person said about you is not true. And in that process, you have to put essentially your entire life and reputation, she said, on the line. She said, if anyone decided to sue over a statement that they preyed upon underage women, for example, then that person's entire dating history would be fair game in the litigation. So if there are women out there who are not 18 who is like, oh, he DM'd me this month, or anything with like, he was friends with Millie Bobby Brown, star of Stranger Things, when she was like 14, I think, they would probably like deposition her. It would become not just two people slinging insults at each other in a willy-nilly sort of fun, hyperbolic. These are public figures also, and you can say things about public figures that you can't say about your neighbor. Like there's just a lot, but it would take it to this place where everything Drake ever did was now up for public scrutiny. And the question is, does Drake want to do that? And I'm not saying that there's even stuff in Drake's closet. I'm just saying, like, does anyone?
Sure. I would assume that nobody, not even him, would want to publish all of that information, right? I mean, this is also interesting because, of course, this petition is looking for more information, but the evidence it cites isn't exactly very incriminating yet. So I think they're really trying to build their case going forward, because in the petition, it cites a YouTube video featuring an interview with an unnamed guy who claims that Kendrick Lamar's label Interscope paid him via third parties to use bots to boost Not Like Us. So it's kind of a lot of like, there's this guy that had a video that said this, that... So it's a lot of hearsay stuff. So I'm very interested in what their argument is going to be of what evidence there actually is to support this claim going forward.
Yeah, because it seems like there are two very separate things happening right now. One is, can you in a diss track assert that someone preys on underage women? And do you want to go through with the defamation suit? And then you would also have to prove that Kendrick Lamar said it with actual malice, which is difficult to do when you're talking about two public figures who are just slinging dirt at one another. The second thing is the allegation about the artificial inflation. And I think at a time when bots and AI is rampant, that's going to be very difficult to prove unless you really have like a paper trail of evidence where people are being paid by this company to engineer bots to inflate this song for whatever reason. The motivation for UMG to do this when it represents both artists, I think you could argue that, like, yeah, you emphasize this beef, you get more people listening to the songs, even if they're not Kendrick Lamar or Drake fans, because they want to know about the beef. So, I mean, it's not like, why would anyone do this, or why would a company want this? Why would Spotify or iHeartRadio benefit from these increased streams? I think that's obvious, but I think it's going to be pretty tricky for Drake to find the kind of evidence that he wants to have the kind of legal battles that he maybe isn't ready for.
Yeah, and while this is happening, Not Like Us is obviously still on Spotify and streaming services, and it's generating 915 million plays on Spotify, which is a lot more than any of Drake's diss tracks that he posted earlier this year, like Family Matters and such. And it went to number 1, and it got nominated for Grammys for both Record of the Year and Song of the Year. So while all of this is occurring in the background, the song keeps chalking up accolades. Kendrick Lamar might even win a Grammy off of it in 2025. We'll see. It's going to be a landmark case. I mean, when it does officially reach court, if they decide to go to court from it, because I don't think this has ever happened in music before. So this is really fascinating outcome, whatever happens here.
Yeah, and it's just such an odd move on his part because, you know, he could have just been like, yeah, okay, you know, I deny these claims, which of course he has done. And he could just be like, whatever, I'm not participating in this beef. And that would have been sort of like, I guess, a cool guy thing to do. Whereas this, I think people are just going to make so much fun of him even more now than before. I think people are going to listen to this song more now than they would have. I listened to it actually for the first time today because of this story. You know, I'm just a very boring person when it comes to music. My number 1 Spotify artist last year was Frédéric Chopin. So I'm not a cool person.
I love Chopin, though. That's cool.
I'm just saying, I'm not like a cool person who keeps up with modern music.
Sure.
Chopin died a century or two ago. So, but like I'm listening to it because I want to know what this beef is about now, even though it's been going on for a decade. So he must feel like he's really going to get something out of this because this feels like a really silly move for somebody where it's all about your reputation and your street cred.
It does. I mean, I would even go as far to say as people like weren't really thinking about it until now again. Like it kind of petered out a bit after this song came out. And yeah, it was really big when it did come out, but now it's like, oh yeah, right. That was happening. It's kind of petered out of the zeitgeist. So this brings it just all the way back in there in a way that I don't know if he'll regret, but it might be a bit problematic for Drake going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Kendrick Lamar released a new album called GNX last week. Variety is calling it a meticulous, versatile, hard-hitting masterpiece. So high praise.
Yes.
Maybe to take this back to classical music composers, which I know everyone associates with rappers, maybe this is a Mozart Salieri situation.
Yes, the beef is strong.
You know, he's just like so angry about this high praise that he's like, that's it. That's
the last straw.
Well, I am going to be very interested to see how this plays out.
Me too. Oh, and here we are at the bottom of the 9th of the pod, Juliet. So the new race, coined Backyard Ultra, it involves running one 4.167, about 4-mile loop in an hour. So you do that, and the runners just keep doing that, sometimes up to days, until there's only one person left. So I don't know about you. I might try that to work off my Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, that's going to be a no for me. That's too much cardio.
Okay. It is too much cardio, but if you are looking for something that's more extreme than a marathon or an Ironman and taps into your survivalist instincts, maybe you could try it.
So it's the 4-mile loop, but you do it over and over again.
Yeah. So you do a 4-mile loop. Everybody does one every hour until everybody stops, except for one person.
That's too much.
It's just way too much. All right, and that'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show, and have a happy Thanksgiving. We're a proud part of the HubSpot podcast network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig. Our executive producer is Darren Clark. We got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get signed up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at The Hustle Daily. We'll catch you next week.